Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
Welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. I'm Sharlene Lynch, and together we're shining a light on hope, resilience, and transformation in the journey to end domestic violence. Each week we bring you inspiring interviews with change makers, survivors, advocates, and experts who are making a difference in the lives of those affected by domestic and family violence. Whether you are on a healing journey or supporting someone who is, this is your space. Our powerful stories shared with you and practical tools and heartfelt inspiration. Together we can heal at the speed of love. I've got a very special guest with us today. Eleonore Stephan has a unique set of skills to assist people who want to achieve the best in their life. She consults on metaphysics, holistic practices, and she's been doing this since 1990s. She's actually younger than she looks, or the other way around, I should say. She's actually been at this a really long time, but she still looks like a spring chicken. And she is a certified Reiki master, theta and quantum touch healing. She is also exploring the metaphysical world. Like, she's diving deep, and she's backing this with science. It's fantastic. She's got an advanced diploma in clinical hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, NLP. Look, the list just goes on. But Eleanor's main focus is been to assist clients to overcome anxiety, trauma, abuse, and release guilt and shame and eliminate fears and phobias and help them just step into what's possible for their life. Welcome to the stage. It's so great to have you here, Eleonore. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Sharlene. Thanks for catching up. It's great to see you again.
It is. It's great to have these beautiful conversations. Look, for everyone's listening, and if they're not sort of familiar with all of these different modalities that you use, it's great for people to have a little bit of a tiny bit of a better understanding. So from my perspective, everything that we listed there, even for the ones that are, could be delivered in person because they're physical touch, like quantum healing, is that all of these are energetic healings and can be done online. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yes, I do. And even with quantum touch, because I've done some advanced levels of quantum touch, we can do that distance healing as well, which is absolutely fantastic. Yep.
I love it. And so for me, it was COVID that showed us as therapists that we could transition, because we had to, from an in-person space to an online space. And we always knew that energy is energy. It doesn't matter in what form it comes. And it wasn't until push came to shove and we were put in a position that kinesiology, can you actually do that online? Well, yes, you actually can. So there are some good things that have come from that space in our time. I love that you concentrate on people with anxiety and trauma and this scarred tissue that we carry, and our listeners mostly are survivors of family and or domestic violence, or are people who are practitioners themselves. Look, trauma's a thing across the board. I feel that all of us, even if it's birth trauma, we still have trauma. So can you talk to me a little bit more about trauma, and let's just see if we can normalize this a little?
Well, trauma is more than just, that physical, war veteran stuff and domestic violence. If there's any sort of yelling, abuse, alcoholism in the household when you're a child, that's a form of PTSD and trauma, and kids carry that through, and those patterns are set when children are very young. So it's not just that physical trauma that women in particular, but all people carry. It really is what happened in their formative years, what happened at school, and even in the workplace. So trauma is manifests as all of that anxiety, stress, depression, all of those sorts of things. But it's just those underlying causes often just get hidden over time, and they say, oh, I've escaped my childhood, but the fingerprints of the child come with you through your adult life. So those unresolved traumas just keep playing over and over and over in dysfunctional relationships or jobs or power between individuals. It doesn't go away.
Wow. I love it. So for us, for people that feel that they're sort of already got these things sorted and we're moving forward and life is okay, how can these things, so let's talk about trauma as opposed to anxiety, how can these things show themselves? How would they express? If we think we've sort of got things sorted and we're like, no, I don't know, I didn't really have a lot of trauma in my life. How can these things manifest? How can they, show up?
Oh, so many different ways. I'll give you an example of how some parents, and I don't do a lot of work with children because it's usually the parents that need therapy than children. But I remember talking to a woman whose 11, 12-year-old had said to her, I'm really worried about my auntie, her sister, who was in hospital, cancer, it was pretty serious. And this woman said to her 12-year-old daughter, it's not your job to worry, it's my job to worry. You just go to school, get your 12 grades, whatever, and I'll take care of that. So, the child had to trottle off. And I said to her, what you've effectively done is disempowered the child, told the child that her feelings are irrelevant, that she's hopeless, helpless, powerless to do anything to help her auntie and to deal with that. I said, a better response is to say something like, yeah, I know, we're all concerned about auntie. And I said, you could have said something like, but we're going to water a dog, we're going to make her some food, freeze some food, we're going to, and depending on the age of the child, they could have made her a card. There's so many ways that you can empower children when they are in difficult and tough situations so that they are empowered. But if we say, no, I'll take care of that, so you can overprotect as well as underprotect. And even with all of the abuse and trauma and violence that can be around children, neglect, putting a child alone by itself is even a really, really tough and difficult thing. Abandonment, all of those, when you have both parents, say, working and they're too busy to interact, that's a form of trauma and abuse as well. So it's very subtle, and we grew up saying, my parents loved me, they worked hard, they did everything for me, but they've got these underlying patterns of, I'm alone, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless. So it's really interesting. So every person's story is unique, and I take the time to find out all of their personal history. So I have a 6-hour program that I do to release, anxiety, stress, trauma, and there is always tragedy and trauma. And even if it's just about, something like, family members dying, and they're not getting the support or help that they need, they leave an imprint on the psyche. So I actually started off years ago teaching, exploring the metaphysical world. So, and I did all of the Reiki, the auras, crystals, all of that sort of training. And that's great. And, I'd certainly encourage people to do those sorts of things. They're very beneficial. They're, help with healing. But what I found is that people were feeling better. Long term, their psyche wasn't changing. So what I found over time is that you actually need to change the unconscious. So another thing that children actually happens with children is parents will say to them after something horrible's happened, or they've had a bad day, or they've been bullied, they say, go to bed, go to sleep, you'll be fine in the morning, you'll feel better in the morning. And the reality is, in the morning, yes, you do get up and you do feel better and you sort of get on with life. But the reality is the issue of, say, bullying for children was never resolved. Because it wasn't resolved physically or mentally in the conscious mind, it just gets slipped into the unconscious mind as an unresolved issue of bullying and intimidation. So what then happens as you grow through life, that sense of bullying and intimidation, even if you don't recognise it, it just happens in your life. Whatever you don't resolve at an energetic level plays out for you in your life. around you. So you'll have a boss or something around you, or a partner that's just bullying and intimidating and overwhelming. And that, so what I learned on very early on was you need to address the unconscious patterns to actually facilitate ongoing permanent change, permanent healing. It's just beautiful. I have my clients, they drag themselves in and then they float out and their lives are just completely changed. So I absolutely love it.
Oh, there's so much to unpack in your response.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Don't apologize. But let's just start with one area. So what I heard in between what you were saying there is that if you've got physical manifestations, if you've got physical things going wrong, and perhaps maybe you've seen a doctor and they're like they give you some pills, that might not be the reason why you're having these physical challenges. It could quite well be unresolved trauma from your youth. So that's what I got out of what you just said.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If you're listening to us today and you've got things like you're not sleeping well, you're losing hair, you've got edema, swelling in the body, if you've got, I love what you just said then, if you've got repeating patterns like a boss that picks on you, or continually getting the same type of relationship with a spouse, there's underlying trauma issues that need to be resolved so you can break those disturbing patterns. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I see so many women that come, and they've moved on, if you like, from a relationship that was physically violent, and they're in somebody that's a lot more loving, but they're still controlling and with narcissist. Let's not go there with narcissists, but so they just move to a different type of controlling relationship, so that you really do need to change those patterns, and that's so difficult. And one of the reasons why we lead to disease is that I usually talk through with my clients about the neuroscience. And back in the 70s, because I really like science, and even though I did the metaphysical stuff, I actually like science. And when you talk about crystals, and you get, oh, that's woo-woo stuff. Well, the reality is they use, lasers and crystals in healing these days. They I still get poo-pooed for colour therapy, and I go, but you use blue light therapy on jaundiced babies. You use ultraviolet light to sterilise things. What's going on here? So there's a real disconnect in that science does use crystal therapies. They do use light and colour therapy in their healing as well. But what we do know is that the neuroscience field is just really exploding, and has been for quite a while. But back in, I think, the 70s, there was Professor Candace Pert, who was one of the first movers and shakers in the neuroscience world. And she found these neuropeptides. And it's now well known that whenever you have a thought or a feeling, you create the neuropeptide. And it's either a happy endorphin type or a stress chemical. So most people would know that if you're feeling stressed, you're feeling tight and anxious, and they've actually shown at the scientific level that what happens is when you're stressed, your system contracts, your cells contract, the DNA contracts, which means the DNA can't do all of its metabolic functions, it can't clean itself, it can't heal. So over time, if you're continuously living in a stressed out environment, guess what? Your cells can't do what they need to do. So you actually do need to know how to change your state from a continuously stressed state and giving it a break, so that it can actually, so you can have a good night's sleep and actually do what we call rest and repair, which primarily happens while you're asleep. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but it's the neuroscience and the chemicals that you create lead to your physical manifestation of illness.
I love it. You've just given us a whole bunch more layers.
Oh, sorry.
Eleonore, I love having conversations with you. They are so rich. Okay, for our listeners today, can we give them a really quick example of what they can do just to have a shift?
Absolutely. So what I ask your listeners to do is just for really quickly, I won't leave you there, is just to think of something that really annoys you or gets you, whatever. So just think about that, and then just notice how that contracts you, and, and where it is in your body. Okay. And you can feel it. somewhere. Okay, right now, just look away, have a look at your ceiling and say, oh, what colour's the ceiling and whatever. Okay, just disconnect from that. We don't like to leave you in a stress state. But you get a sense of when you were thinking about how your body changes, because you change the physiology of your body with the chemicals that you create. So now what I want you to do is think about, what do you love most? What opens you, softens you? It's normally a person, a place, or a pet, something. So what opens you, what softens you? And you can feel yourself soften. Okay, beautiful. Do you feel the difference?
Oh, yes, I do.
Beautiful.
I can feel
Okay.
it in my breathing as well as my thought process
Okay.
and my physical body. Yeah.
So your whole physiology changed because you just whitewashed yourself with a whole set of feel-good endorphins, happy hormones, I call them. So what happens is, because the cells are relaxing, the DNA is relaxing, you're quite different. Your body's in a totally different state. And the reason I like to show that to my clients, or get my clients to do that, is that I say to them, if you have to go into a meeting or you're confronted with person who wants to attack you, like emotionally or mentally, or that you're intimidated by, I said, you need one or two of these things in the back of your mind about what opens you, softens you, so that you can change your state and have a different set of chemicals rather than stress hormones flooding through your body when you're looking to interact with those particular people and in those situations. Because what I'm going to get you to do now is, I want you to think about what do you love most scenario that you had. And now, while you're thinking about that, think about that other situation. And it's not as intense, is
It's
it?
not as intense. It's like, no, 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 no. It's okay. I'm happy.
Exactly. The most important part of that is, now that you can get on with your day, if you have to interact with people and do things, you're doing it from a more empowered position and perspective. You're not going to all over the place because you're in stress hormones, because stress hormones will shut down your ability for your prefrontal cortex for you to think straight and whatever. So you want to flood yourself with those feel-good neuropeptides so that your system is open and functioning, and that you can use your prefrontal cortex to think and respond. And I'm telling you, your response from when you're in a good place, as opposed to when you're in a negative state, is totally different.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it, Eleonore. Okay, so I'm a 30 years an alcoholic, and now almost 10 years sober. So
Okay.
how can this help somebody who has got an addiction, any type of addiction? How can we use the things that you talk about to help us if we're coming from that space of addiction?
Well, so I'd be looking at, so where did the addiction start from? How old were you? What was going on in your life at the time? And look at those sorts of things, because it's hard to spend your life fighting your addiction. You actually need to be in a place where you're just saying, so if your addiction was alcohol, or for most of us carbs, it's it's just how do you change it so that's no longer an issue? There's lots of, I've done EFT, which is the tapping thing as well, and that's and I love tapping too. It's fantastic because tapping really does. And again, I like the science, so I'm there. Well, how does this work? So I went off to find out the science, and there's some really good reasons why tapping works. Because when you're tapping, let's say on a meridian, the meridians they all connect up through different parts of the brain. But in particular, what you're doing when you're tapping is you're tapping on a meridian and creating a delta wave. So that's a calming, relaxing wave, if you know anything about brainwave states. So that brainwave state goes up into the brain and creates peace and relaxation. And the best thing about tapping is that you're focused on the real issue. I am an alcoholic, or I am, angry, or I am whatever. And as you're doing this, it creates those neurochemicals to soften and relax, especially in the amygdala, which is the fight and flight danger there. And it's like, if you're focused on what the issue is, the negative issue, while you're tapping, it actually releases the amygdala, which has got all of these programs, which is where some of these unconscious programs lie, are in the amygdala, and the amygdala keeps those unresolved programming there, when you're tapping, it just goes, oh, I'm not in danger, and there's your bang, and it just releases it, just drops them like that.
I do.
So that's one of the beautiful things about EFT, is that once you find out what the real issue is and focus on it, you can just go, oh, okay, done, dust it, gone.
I love it. So flying is not my favorite thing to do on the planet. Yes, and as a professional speaker, I get to fly a lot. So I still find myself tapping when I fly. And
Which is really good.
fantastic, because it's a therapy I can do for myself. I don't look strange doing it. No one's ever really looked at me weird. And it just is, it's in my bubble, and it just makes me feel good. And I can have a more empowered experience when I'm traveling.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's lots of people that don't like flying, and it's different for everyone. Again, the reason that you might be not comfortable with flying could be different from somebody else's. I've got somebody that I worked with who had a flying problem, and we did, again, some tapping and things like that. And it lasted for a little while, but it didn't last and take. But she, even though I invited her to come and do some unconscious stuff, she didn't do that. And the reality is that this person was somebody that was like to control. She was a real control freak, So, that's tough. If you're up, this little, metal thing, 30,000 or whatever it is, 10,000 feet up, that's pretty hard. You have to let go of control. So people who are really like to be in control have real difficulty, can have difficulty with flying. So every case is unique and different as to what is the underlying motive and whatever. And that's why I do such a comprehensive history of people's background, because you need to find out what it is.
I'm a recovered perfectionist. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm a recovered people pleaser. I'm also a recovered control freak. Like, the list of my recovery is huge. I love it. And from my heart to your heart, Eleonore, it definitely has been the metaphysics of it all. So understand why I got to where I was. And what, that wasn't enough. I needed to use quantum physics. I needed to use other therapies to have that energetic shift to be the person that I am now. So it works on every level. I love it. Now,
Yes.
Tell me more about the 6-hour program, the 6-week program.
Oh, okay. I have a 6-hour program that I do, and it's actually like 10 hours, but there's 6 contact hours that I have with my clients. So, and I have to have a conversation first to find out whether or not, we're suitable to work together. Some people, don't want to do certain things, and that's okay. So what that involves is homework. There's a fair amount of personal history that I need to have back, and then I plan the session. But the sessions basically take the same sort of set of rules. In the first session, we just have a look at what the unconscious core beliefs are. And people are always shocked about what they believe when we do testing on what your unconscious core beliefs are, because that's what's actually running your life. You always run on your unconscious beliefs. So we have a look at what they are and actually start the process of releasing and changing those so that they're not holding you back. That's what's actually stopping you and blocking you. It's what your unconscious core beliefs are. So we look at those, start the process of getting rid of those. And I also introduce you through like imagery or hypnosis, your authentic true self, that you that was in place before all of the programming from your parents, this life, past lives, previous lives, all of those sorts of things. The authentic you without all of the baggage and the programming and beliefs that you've picked up in this lifetime and that you've carried on from previous lifetimes. And that's when people drag in and float out. When you get a chance to meet your authentic real self, that just changes your whole energy. Then when people come back, and that's a 2-hour session, when people come back for their second 2-hour session, we make sure that they're really connected to that authentic real self, who they are. And then we actually go through the process of having a look at the core traumas or distressing events that they've had in their life. And sometimes it is just around grief, people that they've lost, that they've never really come to terms with. in broken relationships and those sorts of things, but usually everyone's got some sort of trauma in there as well. So we deal with quite a few of the major impacts that have happened in their life, and then we let them go home after that 2-hour sessions, and I like to leave them for about a week, and then they come back, and they're usually different people because those underlying triggers have dissipated. So they're no longer in the amygdala or in the system. So just programming and just pushing buttons. So and I ask them, so just notice what's triggered you or what you notice has pissed you off in the last week or so. And they'll come back and they'll say, oh, this, whatever, and I noticed this, but I noticed my mother's talking to me different. Oh, no, I noticed my husband says that I'm nicer, but I haven't changed. And they have. At an energetic level, everybody changes. So in the last session, we'll mop up anything that needs to be propped up, and we do something called Create the Future. So if we've made all of these changes and taken all of these things away that no, whatever, we need to make sure that we've also created the future. And so we'll go through a process of making sure that they're energetically as well as emotionally and psychologically set up to go into their future. It's just great. And,
I love it. It's fantastic. So this is energy, psychology, and quantum healing, reclaiming life for anxiety, stress, and trauma and abuse. This is everything that you need to move forward and unpack and step into another version of what's possible for your life. Yeah. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to chat with you. And clearly we can chat all day, and it's got to be something about being over 50. We just love a cuppa and a bit of a chat.
Absolutely.
And today, if you're listening and you are a survivor of family and or domestic violence, reach out to Healing Through Love. We have Pamper Days, think day spa on steroids, where you come along and our beautiful therapists hold that space for you for the day for free, so that you can have everything from your hair done, your makeup done, your chakras aligned, quantum healing, Reiki, you name it, that's experienced. And for those of you who are listening and you are a therapist, and if you've got a heart for change and you'd like to help us shift awareness on family and domestic violence, reach out to Healing Through Love, because we are now global and have these beautiful Pamper Days all around the world. It's been a privilege to hold the space with you today, and I look forward to having another conversation with you soon. It's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Eleonore.
Thank you, Sharlene. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.